which is the engineering update by Richard. So Richard, over to you.
Thank you, Curtis. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen now. Excellent. So, morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Richard Petrie. I'm the CTO at LINX. I'm going to take you through the technology update section. The four areas that I'm going to focus on are service issues. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of a run of service issues, which I'll explain and go through, and an update on Alice Looking Glass. Then I've got a quick status on automation on our side and LINX API. Sorry, the IX API, and then I'll finish off with an update on NoVA and what we're doing out in North America. So first of all, service issues. As I say, we've had a little bit of run. One of them was impacted by ourselves. One is related to the London 2 issues that we saw with the IPM Fusion Ocnos, and the other one, as many of you will probably know, it has been down to the LD8 Equinix power outage, and I'm going to go through each one of them just to give a recap and update on where we are, and for anybody that missed that, so that we're all in sync on that. So the first one, I mean, it wasn't this service issue was something internally that we impacted, but it didn't impact the actual packets that were passing. This was a portal and a stats service down. So around on the 12th of August, we'd obviously been doing some work actually around, Curtis mentioned this morning about the JetX traffic. So there were some improvements and changes we had to make to the stats system because of the way that we connect and collect data to that geography. And unfortunately, the deployment there started to consume or created too much data into the database. We have some protection limits that were in there, and that obviously kicked in, and then that meant that services that were being served by those databases, such as the stat system, the portal stat system, was down. We've since done a review. Obviously, the code associated with that has been adjusted. The limits that we put on the database have been reviewed as well, and been reapplied. We're hoping now that based on that protection that we put in place, we're not going to see this issue again. The second issue is a lot more complicated, and this did obviously impact traffic, and there was a number of back and forth conversations on the ops channel. The situation here, I'll go back. I think I've got the time frame here. I mean, this was back in June. We received. We've been working with IPM Fusion and on a new release of Ocnos, really to help us with some improvements around the way that we do automation. As main drivers and some features for product services. But we were testing in our lab and in their labs the 138 release in June, and I think you would have all seen that in July 16th, where we sent out maintenance notices, and on 16th of July was the first one of them, and we started to do the usual batches of edge device upgrades and core device upgrades with the new software. And it wasn't until the 31st of July that we had our first indication there might be something that was wrong. This was actually related to a single member reporting an IPv6 issue, and so it didn't, obviously we didn't register that there might be a wider issue until the sort of Monday and Tuesday investigation related to the IPv6 issue that was raised. The LINX engineer started to see that we were seeing some CPU problems on the IPM Fusion devices, and obviously we started to engage with IPM Fusion. We then had some members early on Wednesday morning start to report in to us that they're starting to observe drop packets across the peering LAN, and obviously the escalation during the day with IPM Fusion to look into exactly what's happening, which resulted in a quick fix, certainly for the bulk of the problems, not for everything. And as I go through, you'll see that there are other issues. But this was a fix that certain packets that were being transmitted across the network, rather than just being passed on through the network, they were getting routed to the CPU for investigations such as RIP update packets. And obviously that shouldn't have been happening. And IP Infusion were able to give us a command that we could deploy ad hoc to stop that from happening. Thursday and Friday was very much observation, investigation. We had obviously put an interim workaround in place, but we hadn't really found what the root cause was, or actually looked into specific members that were still seeing some IPv6 issues there. So testing continued across the weekend, and coming into Monday the 10th, you would have seen there would have been an update. And actually we realized then that there was two parts to this. There was the CPU issue, which was this RIP packets being hit, the RIP packets that were being passed to the CPU for inspection, which was causing the CPU to get busy, and then obviously when it did, impacted flows. There was also the IPv6 neighbor discovery problem, and that was treated then separately and looked into. As we ran through that week, and I think you would have seen updates from the team, and Mo and Mark and Jan were giving some updates there. We started to the network was stable. We had 2 members that were experiencing IPv6 issues, and so they worked with us and kindly gave us the packet captures that we could send off to IP Infusion. That followed with updates on the 14th and 21st, and I think you would have seen on the ops list that Jan put out a status explaining the sort of 3 areas of IPv6 that were showing some issues. It doesn't affect everyone. There was a couple of things that we had to work through with these particular members, but there is a bug that is outstanding, and I'll just to explain there. So in summary, I mean, with the issues, the uplift issue has been seen before. So this is going back. It's a bug that found its way back into the code. So obviously we're going to look into why, from a QA point of view, IP Infusion and ourselves in our lab, we didn't spot that. It's a strange one because obviously these packets, it isn't just the presence of these packets, it's a combination of the presence and the number of flows that are going on and the number of packets. And when we did the first upgrade and we observed, and then the second upgrade and observed, we didn't see this problem. It's only after a period of time, I think it was around about 2 weeks later, that we started to see this. So actually how that situation builds up, we're still investigating that with IP Infusion to get to the bottom of it, but we've started to put some tests in our lab that we'll be able to stress test this as best we can before we do any further deployments. On the IPv6 issue, there has been some workarounds that have been put in place, but there's one particular bug that we found that's probably been there for a long time, which is the unicast neighbor discovery packet. We are then going to have to get a patch to 138, and we'll then have to do another round of deployment to push that software out into the edge devices on the network. Obviously, after the QA and the testing in the lab, to make sure that we don't fall back into the same situation. And the key for that really is that helps us with some of the network configuration automation that we'll be doing. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a minute. So I'm just going to go on to the LD8 issue, and then I'll take it. I'll check to see if there's any questions thereafter. So this was on Tuesday, the 18th of August, outside of our control. We had a power outage at LD8. It was the whole building was impacted. It was around about 4:30. We saw the issues initially on our systems. This impacted around about 150 members that were either connecting into that connecting into the LINX suite, or obviously housing their own services within that building. We actually have a LINX peering POP for London 1 and London 2, and we also house our LINX IT services, or 50% of our IT services. In the main, the IT services failed over to the interaction, which is the other hot site, which so we run services live. There was some issues on the failover, which we've since corrected. It meant that the portal was down for a little bit, and the knock chat functionality that lots of people use, and getting an ops announce message out was also impacted slightly. So I think it took us to around about 7:30. Our focus obviously was making sure that we understood the problem on the power and the network, and then get the IT services up around 7:30. As I say there, it did delay the ops announce, but it didn't stop the LINX engineers from talking to each other. So we obviously had a distributed workforce. We had our chat functionality. We had an instant management Zoom room. Our own company mail was working. So we were in contact. Andre headed to site as soon as we realized what was going on. Unfortunately, he couldn't get in because at the time when power was confirmed as the root cause, Equinix also had a fire alarm, and they evacuated the building, and they didn't actually let the LINX engineers in. But Andre waited on site outside until we got the access, and that all approved. Time wise, I think it was roundabout. So during as the morning lunchtime went on, Equinix started to get engineers from across their other data centers to site. They had some parallel power infrastructure that was in place that they started to move services over to. We were allowed to return to our suite around about 2:30, and obviously then bring up the LINX equipment. We had some line card failures, and our services were all back by about 4:30. I think the building itself, as far as all LINX members and all of Equinix customers, I think was given the all clear around 2100 that same evening, so 9 p.m. We do have an RFO from Equinix, and if there's any further interest in going through that, obviously contact myself or the NOC, and we can pass that information on. So just I'll quickly pause there, just check if I can see whether there's any questions. I don't know if maybe Curtis could help me out, see if there's any questions.
No questions so far, no.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Curtis. Okay, so yeah, I mean, issues. Unfortunately, August has seen a collection of issues there, and we're vigilant as we go forward on this, especially with the London 2 network. That when we get this patch to 138, that we will deploy that and test that and be monitoring closely any CPU problems and any IPv6 issues. So the Alice Looking Glass. So this is a project that we've been running with over the sort of late summer, sort of late spring, early summer. Just to recap, the Alice Looking Glass is the front end interface. It consumes Birdwatcher, which is API running on Bird. As many of you will know, that the LINX root servers were upgraded. We used to run a Bird and Quagga setup, but we upgraded the secondary root servers at each site so that we have a Bird and Bird setup, which gave us functionality around RPKI that we wanted to roll out. It also meant that we could turn on functionality around Birdwatcher and update our Looking Glass, and we chose the Alice Looking Glass, and Mike spoke about that at previous LINX updates. We tried to build the Alice Looking Glass on our virtual machine estate, but there's some complexities around the memory and the CPU usage, and we decided to revert to a standalone server deployment. This was something that we tried to get working in the lab over the late July August period, but we reluctantly we've switched deployment to ordered some standalone servers and switched to that. So that means that testing's going on at the moment, but all looking good. We'll move it to production in October, and that means we can enable the Alice Looking Glass for the root servers in October as well. We'll continue to work on the collectors. I think Mike has also mentioned in the past that we've got old legacy Cisco routers that are doing the collection the root collection functionality. And the idea will be that we'll put an instance of Bird running as the collector, and then we'll use exactly the same setup, the Bird Watcher with the Alice Looking Glass. So you'll have, from a membership point of view, by the end of December, or by the change freeze, you'll have the collectors with a Alice Looking Glass instance, and you'll have the root servers with an Alice Looking Glass instance as well. As I say, there will be 3. I think I put down there. We'll enable the root collectors after we do the upgrades in November and December, and we'll have 3 instances at the end. Some resiliency, obviously, between sites, but 1 will be for the root servers, 1 for the collectors, and we will have a separate one actually for JetX for the SDC partnership project. On the automation side, say we continue to work with the team. The software team have developed a version 2, which is now deployed onto our London 1 network. The goal here is to tie it in with the portal development, and Mike's going to talk a little bit about the portal development. But the goal is, as we enable the version 2, it gives not only the NOC engineers the ability to do rapid software-driven changes to the network, but it also gives us the ability to tie into some of the portal strategy and give members the ability to self-service on Mac changes, and hopefully in time much more. On London 2, this is obviously, we haven't rolled it out because of the issue that I spoke of earlier. The 138 has features in there that brings us the capabilities to do what we can on the Juniper network onto the IP Fusion network around some of the more complex software-driven network configuration changes. But that's, you know, as I say, we're working with IP Fusion, and that, you know, we feel that 138, the patch will be deployed, and we'll be able to turn on the automation services. The background workflow and the tooling, the software team have already developed that. That's been tested in UAT, and we're confident that's gonna work once we get the OCNOS code stable.
Richard, there's a question on the route servers.
Yes.
From Ivan Beveridge. Is the intention to return to dual vendor route servers or remain single vendor?
So we do have an intention. We are working with Job and a chap called Claudio on investigating the Open BGPD root server. We're also partnering, as we've done on that second item there that I put down there with LINX, AM6 and DKIX. We're working with other internet exchanges to see whether we can put some investment behind having a second root server. So that is work in progress. There's some correspondence. Obviously, we've been slightly impacted by COVID, but our goal is to test out and hopefully develop the Open BGPD root server, and have that as if it tests operational stability, we'll then move it into production thereamter. So it is our goal. I can't say at the moment it hasn't passed the lab testing, so I can't say we definitely will, but that is our ambition. Hopefully that answers the question. The second point there is the version 2, and as I say, we've been working in partnership with a couple of internet exchanges, AM6 and DKIX as well, on the IX API version 2. So this is due for deployment. So the reference model, the sandbox model, has been deployed. We've got to do some internal work over the coming weeks to make sure it all integrates with our order management system and portal and order forms. But effectively, version 2 will be coming out for consumption, and it adds things like the ability to order and service private VLANs, cloud connectivity, which isn't as relevant to us, but is more so to some other internet exchanges. And I put there content. It's not content. That's a typo there. It's contact management. So there's contact management improvements that were found. Version 1 didn't quite have the setup that we wanted, and so we found some improvements, and we will be rolling out version 2 that then changes some of the way that we do contact management. in the system. But that will be published. We'll be doing a release with AM6 and DKIX, and the IX API website will be updated with the documentation. And if you have interest in testing out the IX API from your own company's point of view and working with us on consuming that, you know, do go to the website. There's contacts there, or you can obviously contact myself direct, and I can follow up and give you some information on how your company can develop against our API. And the last one I wanted just to cover, because before I hand over to Mike, is the NoVA and QTS. So we've had quite a lot of activity out in North America. Actually, it's been a little bit frustrating because of the COVID situation, and the high number of cases that have been reported in the US. We haven't been able to send network engineers to site, and we were hoping that the situation would improve, and we've kind of been putting these projects on hold while we wait for the situation to improve. But we kind of said, look, we can't wait any longer. So last month we completed the upgrades for the transmission POP, which is in the Equinix Ashburn site, and this was to allow 100 gig services to be long line back to the peering lands. The peering land in NoVA. That's been done successfully, and we're working with a member to enable 100 gig services out of that site. Also gives us additional fiber resiliency out to that particular transmission POP as well. We're working with Iron Mountain, so the Evo switch site is going to be retired and services moved over to Iron Mountain. So we were going to send a LINX engineer out for this, but we're going to use remote hands, do a parallel build, move services over to the new Iron Mountain site, and then we'll retire the old Evo switch site. They're geographically they're very similar locations, just across the street. And also in the mix, we've struck a new partnership with a company called QTS, which is another data center out in North Virginia in the Ashburn area. So we're working with the dark fiber ring to augment that, to take that into the site. We'll be adding a full LINX peering POP. The hardware and the fiber costs are going to be a shared risk, so there's investment by QTS to make sure that that's cost effective. And so the teams will be again using remote hands to guide local engineers, US engineers, so we don't have to send LINX engineers out there, but we'll be doing all of the testing and build in parallel. LINX engineers will still be doing the sign off and final acceptance into service. And these projects, that means, will be back up and running as we go through September, October, and November. So hopefully at the next meeting that Curtis mentioned, November, we'll have some positive news on the Iron Mountain and QTS sites out in North Virginia. And that is it from, oh, sorry, yeah, I had a summary sentence here. Yeah, so just to confirm that COVID has delayed us, and we will still be using LINX engineers to sign off the projects at the end of that.